I told you last week that there was a superintendent in Oklahoma where the superintendent of public instruction, Ryan Walters, he's that Christian nationalist who recently said every teacher needs to use the Bible in the classroom. And one superintendent said, yeah, we're not doing that. Well, I said last week, I think the floodgates are about to open, and they have started opening, and it's glorious. Let me just recap for those of you who don't know this story. Ryan Walters, he announced last month, maybe 2 months ago now, that he would force teachers across the state to make the Bible a part of their curriculum. He said it's a necessary historical document to teach our kids about the history of this country. Therefore, every teacher, every classroom in the state will have a Bible in the classroom and will be teaching from the Bible in the classroom. And that was a weird thing to say because there's so many questions about that. Like, does every teacher have to participate? Like the gym teachers, choir teachers? What are you talking about? Math teachers? What version of the Bible? And if lesson plans have to be rewritten, are teachers going to be compensated for that? What if teachers disobey? What if me teaching English says, hey, you want to read some shitty writing? Let's open up to the book of Genesis. Does that count or do I get in trouble for that? And isn't all of this illegal? So we've been talking about this for a while now, but so far, Ryan Walters' office they released a memo initially saying, like, the Bible has a substantial influence on our founders. Adherence to this mandatory is compulsory, immediate, and strict compliance is expected. And then he gave a salute with one hand. But like, here's the thing. No one seems to be taking this seriously. Church-state separation groups haven't even filed a lawsuit because they don't think this has any teeth. It was an official policy. It's not a law, and no one's been forced to comply yet. So that tells you something when even the church-state groups are like, there's nothing for us to do yet. The state's attorney general, who's a Republican, but surprisingly good on church-state issues, is like, Bibles are already allowed in school, so what the hell are we talking about here? Like, even they're saying there's nothing going on here, saying Walter's memo was pointless. And then Walters started going to threats. He said, Walters told the New York Times, if teachers don't comply with using the Bible, the state could revoke their accreditations or certifications, which is something he doesn't have the power to take away, which is weird. Okay. So anyway, a couple weeks ago, one superintendent of the Norman Public Schools said, we're not participating in this charade. He said teachers could use the Bible in a lesson if they wanted to, if they felt it was appropriate, like in a literature class or something, but that's already legal, so they're not going to change what they're doing. And in response to that at the time, what did Ryan Walters' office say? And I said this last week, but this is what they told the local news. Oh, yes, they will, is what Ryan Walters' spokesperson said, like a very mature response to a superintendent saying, yeah, we're not listening to you. But okay, that was just one dude, one district. Now what? And now it seems that everyone else is getting on board. Look at this glorious headline from the Oklahoman this week. At least 8 large Oklahoma school districts rebuke Ryan Walters' order to teach the Bible. And let's read through the beginning of this together because it's great. Okay, actually, I'm going to scroll down here. Studies, this is from the Piedmont School District, basically telling parents, look, our studies already include discussions on the impact of religion in shaping societies, traditions, and historical events. However, it's important to clarify that while students learn about religion's role in historical and cultural contexts, teaching any specific religious doctrine or practice is not part of our current standards. So they're like, yeah, we're not doing it. Jenks Public Schools in suburban Tulsa also said, we have no plans to change course from our current materials. We will continue to use our current curriculum and approved resources. Everyone's just giving a big middle finger to Ryan Walters. Other large districts that have indicated they won't follow the directive, but stick with their locally approved curriculum are Norman Public Schools. We already knew that. Moore Public Schools, Stillwater, Bixby, Yukon, and the Deer Creek School District. Like, all of these big ass districts are saying, we're totally not listening to that crazy Christian nationalist dude who just wants a role in Donald Trump's next administration if he gets that opportunity. That's basically what everyone is saying. Oklahoma House Democrats have also, and there's only like 4 of them, but they're awesome. they have encouraged other school districts to follow a same path. One representative, Cindy Munson, she said that the rejection is bipartisan of what Walters wants. She said, "We know from actively engaging with our constituents that this Bible mandate is something both Democrats and Republicans are adamantly against. This is nothing more than an attempt to strip Oklahomans of their religious freedoms." So, if you're Ryan Walters and you're seeing all this, what do you do? Well, the first thing he did was he got in touch with a right wing media outlet, and he's like, "Well, guess what? I'm issuing my guidance on how to stick the Bible into your classroom." And look at what he said to the Washington Examiner, a right wing site. "The guidance emphasizes the Bible's impact on how Western civilization was built, including philosophy, legal frameworks, ethics, and cultural norms." Yes, we have all those because of the Bible. He goes on, "Aside from Western civilization and American political history, the guidance highlights the Bible's influence on literature, including its heavy reference in some of the most prominent literary works through allusions, archetypes, and themes. Teachers will also be required to highlight the Bible's own use of literary techniques such as allegory, metaphor, and parable." Like, I'm just saying, I was not an English teacher, but there are ways to teach allegory and metaphor without the Bible. The Scarlet Letter. That's all that is. Like, there is no shortage of books that show you whatever literary things you want to teach kids. You don't have to use the Bible for that, but Ryan Walters wants to force these teachers to use the Bible. And like, listen, the number one complaint kids have about the literature they are assigned in high school is that it's boring and they don't want to read it. And Ryan Walters thinks, well, if we just assign the Bible, King James Version, I'm sure all the kids will totally get on board with that. Like, how dumb do you have to be to think that one? I actually took a look at his guidance. This one was an example of how he wants to use the Bible. Check this out. This is for upper elementary school. So maybe grades 4, 5, 6, something like that. So what can you do with the Bible if you're in upper elementary and you're doing like English? Well, narrative elements. Discuss the elements of a story, such as plot, characters, and setting, using biblical stories as example. Like, you could do that, but you know what actually helps kids learn about plot, characters, and settings? Good books that are fun to read. That's a way you could do it. Why are you forcing teachers to use the most boring imaginable book to teach stuff that's actually useful? And then he does it like literary devices for elementary school. Teach similes and metaphors and personification within biblical texts. Like, you could, but you could also do that with actual good literature. Music appreciation. Introduce students to classical musical pieces inspired by biblical themes. Oh my God, this guy wants to make school even more boring by forcing the Bible into everything they do. This is why this guy is not teaching at a school, because he doesn't know how schools work. I found this interesting also. This is also from the Oklahoman. Neither the original directive from Walters nor the guidance provided Wednesday indicated who would pay for the Bibles if he wants one in every classroom. There also hasn't been any indication from Walters which version or versions of the Bible would be acceptable to teach from. Like, is it all KJV? Is it something else? Because guess what? A lot of people don't use KJV. So Ryan Walters hasn't thought any of this through. He's only doing this for like the Fox News hits and no other reason, because it's not about helping kids. It's all about shoving the Bible where it doesn't belong, because they know people would not come to the Bible on their own because it's a crappy book. There was only one thing I read in his 5-page guidance letter that I thought, you know what? I could get on board with this, which is that he said teachers should examine parallels. Let me see if I could find this one. They should examine parallels. Oh, sorry, here we go. Let me pull this up right here. You will enjoy this too. Comparative studies. This can include examining parallels between biblical stories and Greek mythology, or comparing the ethical teachings of the Bible with those of other philosophical traditions. You know what? Yes, they should absolutely do that. Let's compare biblical myth with Greek mythology, because I think students would be surprised to find how many ancient Greek myths seem to rise up again in biblical mythology. And when they see, like, oh, this is what the Greeks believed, and it's all bullshit now. Oh, hey, what's this book over here? Adam and Eve? Well, I guess that sounds like bullshit too. Like, you know what? I'm all for that. But by the way, good teachers already do that sort of thing in school. So I don't know why you need to have some sort of directive for teachers to do that. I mean, the bottom line here is someone who hates public education is doing everything he can to turn it into Sunday school. But now professional educators are pushing back because they actually care about the students. And you know what? School's about to start in Oklahoma in a couple of weeks, which means more school districts are going to have to respond, which means I think you'll see that floodgate has opened. More districts are going to come through and say, we don't care what Ryan Walters says about anything. One other last thing this week, a whole bunch of church state separation groups actually filed an open records request about this whole mandate. They want to know who Ryan Walters was talking to when he formulated all this, who gave him this idea, if there's any, evidence of it on government emails or anything like that. Who's paying for all this stuff? Who's paying for the staff time to put into this? I don't know if it'll lead to anything, but it might be interesting to find out. So I'm glad to see these superintendents pushing back.